Bruno Mars, the electrifying showman who conquered the world with infectious beats and flawless performances, has sold over 100 million records worldwide and won 15 Grammy Awards by age 40. He is one of the best-selling artists of all time, a performer so polished, so precise, that every move seems effortless. But behind the dazzling smile and platinum records lies a story not glamorous, but brutal, a tale of tragic loss, crippling debt, and a childhood spent performing not for fame, but for survival. A man who watched his mother die far too young, who gambled away millions in a secret addiction that nearly destroyed him, and who sacrificed his own identity to become the superstar the world demanded. This is the heartbreaking truth about Bruno Mars. If Bruno Mars has ever made you dance, cry, or feel alive through his music, hit like as tribute to his resilience. This is the story of a boy who grew up on stage before he could walk, who lost everything to find himself, and who proved that even when you reach the top of the world, the hardest battles are the ones nobody sees. October 8, 1985, Honolulu, Hawaii. The day Peter Gene Hernandez entered the world, marked not by celebration, but by expectation. His father, Peter Hernandez Sr., was a Latin percussionist from Brooklyn. His mother, Bernadette San Pedro Bayat, was a talented singer and dancer from the Philippines. They met in Hawaii, fell in love, and created a family band called the Love Notes. The beginning was not glamorous, but demanding. Bruno, a nickname given by his father, because the chubby baby resembled wrestler Bruno Sammartino, was performing before he could form complete sentences. At 2 years old, he was already on stage, impersonating Elvis Presley in his father's show. Not for fun, for money. The Hernandez family lived paycheck to paycheck in Waikiki, surviving on whatever tourists would drop into the tip jar. Some nights were good, most were not. Bruno shared a cramped home with his 5 siblings, sleeping in bunk beds, wearing hand-me-down clothes, watching his parents struggle to keep the lights on. But on stage, everything was magic. Bruno could sing, he could dance, he could command a crowd's attention with the charisma of someone 3 times his age. By 4 years old, he was being called the world's youngest Elvis impersonator, performing 5 days a week at a venue called the Tropicana Lounge. What few people know is that this wasn't childhood, it was survival training. Bruno learned early that entertainment wasn't about art, it was about making people happy enough to pay. If the crowd didn't clap, the family didn't eat. That pressure shaped everything about him, the perfectionism, the people-pleasing, the relentless work ethic that would later define his career. He absorbed everything: Elvis, Michael Jackson, James Brown. He studied their moves, their rhythms, their ability to make audiences feel. He wasn't just performing, he was building a foundation. But Hawaii was small, and Bruno Mars was destined for something bigger. At 17, fresh out of President Theodore Roosevelt High School in 2003, Bruno made a devastating decision. He would leave his family and move to Los Angeles to pursue music. His mother supported him. His father was skeptical. Neither knew how brutal the journey would be. Los Angeles, 2003. Bruno Mars arrived with $1,000 in his pocket and a dream that seemed impossible. The rejection was immediate and crushing. Record labels told him he was too short, too ethnic, not marketable. His voice was good, but who would buy records from someone who looked like him? Bruno was 5'5", mixed race, and didn't fit the mold of what pop stars were supposed to look like in the early 2000s. He was rejected by every major label. For 5 years, Bruno struggled in Los Angeles, living in a cramped studio apartment, eating ramen noodles, watching his bank account dwindle to nothing. He took odd jobs. He wrote songs for other artists, hoping someone would notice his talent. The world saw ambition, but the truth was different. He was terrified of failing and having to return to Hawaii defeated. Then came 2006. Bruno met producer Philip Lawrence, and together they began writing songs. They formed a production team called the Smeezingtons with engineer Ari Levine. The trio wrote songs for anyone who would hire them, working for $1,500 per track, barely enough to survive. but Bruno's songwriting was undeniable. In 2009, he co-wrote Right Round for Flo Rida. The song reached #1 on the Billboard Hot 100. He co-wrote Nothing on You for B.O.B. and Billionaire for Travie McCoy, both massive hits in 2010. Suddenly, Bruno Mars was the hottest songwriter in the industry, but he wasn't satisfied writing for others. He wanted to be the star. By 2010, at age 25, Bruno finally signed a solo deal with Atlantic Records. His debut single, Just the Way You Are, was released on July 20, 2010. It went straight to #1. The song earned him his first Grammy nomination and sold over 12.5 million copies worldwide. His debut album, Doo-Wops and Hooligans, released in October 2010, went on to sell over 6 million copies. Bruno Mars had arrived, but success brought something he didn't expect: scrutiny. September 19, 2010, Las Vegas, Nevada. Just 2 months after Just the Way You Are became a global smash, Bruno Mars made a mistake that almost destroyed everything. He was arrested at the Hard Rock Hotel and Casino for cocaine possession. The news was everywhere. Headlines screamed about the rising star's fall from grace. His label panicked. His team scrambled. Bruno faced up to 4 years in prison if convicted. For a man whose entire identity was built on being perfect, the shame was unbearable. In interviews years later, Bruno would describe that moment as the worst day of my life. He had worked for 7 years to escape poverty, to make his family proud, to prove he belonged, and in one night, he'd risked it all. He pled guilty to felony drug possession in February 2011, receiving 1 year of probation, a $2,000 fine, 200 hours of community service, and mandatory drug counseling. But the real punishment was the judgment. The world saw a party boy who got caught, but the truth was different. Bruno was struggling with the pressure of sudden fame, the fear of losing it all, and a dangerous relationship with excess that would haunt him for years. He could have crumbled. Instead, he worked. By 2013, Bruno Mars was unstoppable. His second album, Unorthodox Jukebox, released in December 2012, produced massive hits like Locked Out of Heaven and When I Was Your Man. He was selling out arenas worldwide. His Moonshine Jungle tour would gross over $156 million. Everything was perfect. Then came June 1, 2013. Bernadette Hernandez, Bruno's mother, died suddenly from a brain aneurysm. She was 55 years old. The phone call came while Bruno was on tour. He flew home to Hawaii immediately, numb with shock. His mother, the woman who had believed in him when nobody else did, who had sacrificed everything so her children could dream, who had taught him to sing, to perform, to love music, was gone. It is heartbreaking when the person who gave you your voice isn't there to hear it. Bruno canceled shows. He disappeared from public view. For weeks, he grieved in private, surrounded by family, trying to process a loss that felt impossible. In later interviews, he admitted he almost quit music entirely. What's the point? He thought. The person he most wanted to make proud would never see another show, never hear another song. But then he realized something. The best way to honor her was to keep going. Bruno poured his grief into his music. He wrote songs about loss, about love, about the fragility of life. His performances became more emotional, more raw. The world saw a superstar at the peak of his powers. But the truth was different. He was a son performing through heartbreak. Every show a tribute to the woman who made it all possible. What few people know is that Bruno Mars has struggled with a gambling addiction for years. In 2024, reports emerged that Bruno owed MGM Resorts an estimated $50 million in gambling debts, accumulated over years of high-stakes poker and casino games in Las Vegas. $50 million gone. The news shocked fans who assumed the multi-platinum artist was financially secure. His net worth was estimated at $175 million, but a significant portion had been gambled away in private VIP rooms at Las Vegas casinos. Behind the flawless performances and chart-topping hits lies a man who has battled addiction in the shadows. The same drive that made him a perfectionist performer also made him susceptible to the high of risk. The thrill of the bet. Bruno has never publicly addressed the full extent of his gambling, but those close to him have described it as a coping mechanism, a way to feel something, to escape the pressure, to find excitement outside of the controlled perfection of his stage persona. It's a devastating reminder that even at the top, the demons follow. In 2017, Bruno Mars found creative salvation in an unexpected partnership. He began collaborating with drummer and singer Anderson .Paak, and together they formed Silk Sonic. The duo's debut album, An Evening with Silk Sonic, was released on November 12, 2021, and became an instant classic. The album won 4 Grammy Awards, including Album of the Year and Record of the Year for the hit single Leave the Door Open. The collaboration reignited Bruno's passion for music at a time when he'd been creatively stagnant. After the exhausting To4K Magic World Tour 2017-2018, which grossed over $367 million, Bruno had considered stepping back from the spotlight. But Anderson .Paak reminded him why he loved music in the first place: the joy of creation, the thrill of collaboration, the freedom to experiment. Not because he had to prove anything, but because he still had something to say. At 40, Bruno Mars is still one of the most sought-after performers in the world. He currently has a residency at Park MGM in Las Vegas, performing regularly to sold-out crowds. The residency reportedly earns him over $1 million per show. His relationship with model Jessica Cabin, which began in 2011, remains strong after 13 years together. They live quietly in Los Angeles, avoiding the spotlight when possible. Bruno has no children, but he's close with his siblings and nieces and nephews. Family remains his anchor. His net worth, despite the gambling debts, is estimated at $175 million. He continues to earn millions from touring, streaming royalties, and his extensive catalog of hits. He's become more selective about projects, focusing on quality over quantity. He's also working on new music, though he refuses to rush the creative process. What few people know is that Bruno has quietly supported music education programs in Hawaii, funding instruments and lessons for underprivileged children, a tribute to the mother who made his own musical education possible. He's found peace in routine. He works out daily, practices constantly, and maintains the discipline that has defined his career. But the gambling continues. Friends worry. Handlers monitor. It's a battle he fights privately, away from the adoring crowds. Bruno Mars at 40 is a man who has everything and nothing: the world's admiration, financial success, creative fulfillment, but also loss, addiction, the weight of perfection. At 40, Bruno Mars stands as proof that talent alone isn't enough. You need resilience, discipline, and the courage to keep going when everything falls apart. From Honolulu to Los Angeles to stages across the world, from poverty to platinum records, from devastating loss to creative rebirth, Bruno's journey is one of survival. If this story touched your heart, leave a tribute below. Share a moment when Bruno Mars' music reminded you that joy can exist alongside pain, that perfection is an illusion, and that the most beautiful performances often come from the most broken places. Bruno Mars, 40, proves that legends aren't born from talent alone. They're forged from the refusal to give up, even when giving up seems like the only option.